Goodness
I got
gracious.
thrown out of a soccer game once as a coach coaching my son. There was I never did any other time, and it was never about winning. What it was about this day is we were playing a much better team, and they were manhandlers. They were starting to hurt us. But on top of that, they were getting all the calls. And so I'm just asking the ref to protect my boys. Finally, there's this guy going hard at our goalie. Our goalie makes this save, and he just takes our goalie down hard. And I think they scored. So the ball goes in, and our goalie's laying on his back, writhing in pain, and they hand him a red card. The ref hands him a red card, which I could not believe. So I'm apoplectic. I'm going nuts, and I'm yelling at this guy. They literally took our kid off the field, put him in an ambulance, took him to the hospital. He had a broken leg. So now I'm just chirping hard, right? You would, right? They're not protecting your 12, 13, 14-year-old, however old he was. And so he comes over to me and he says, listen to me, I don't want to hear one more word out of you about my refereeing today. You say one more word about my refereeing, then you're going to be thrown out of this game. And so I turned around to all my parents. I go, hey, parents, I'm not allowed to tell the ref how bad he is, so I'm going to need you to do that for me. Oh. He said, you come on.
I'm a beggar who could use some help. I'm a seeker, searching for myself. I'm a rolling stone, just waiting on a friend. I'm a lover, wishing on a star for another, with a broken heart to hold each other close till the end.
Oh man, I get goosebumps seeing that, and I say this, it gives me goosebumps because I love you and your whole family. You're a dear friend. I'm so proud of this. Not only you're an unbelievable baseball coach, but man, you've got a killer thing going, Coach. You really do. And we're going to talk about Saban and all kinds of stuff here with you today. I'm so glad to have you. But when you sent me that video clip the other day, I was like, this is why this cat can do this forever if he wants to, because you get the good stuff. I'm just proud of him. Glad we're partnered with you, and glad to have you, Coach.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a joy, and I love talking to successful people. I love music. I love sports. I love leadership, and to get to pick the brains of people at the highest of the high is fascinating to me. And I surely hope it is fascinating for our listeners too that love sports and love music. And it's been a lot of fun. I don't play much golf, so I need to have a hobby. I don't lay out on the beach here in Charleston, so this is my hobby, and I'm having a great time.
Well, so I mean, I think that you've got whenever you record the next one, you got some dudes who've got some free time now. You got Saban out there and Pete Carroll, Belichick. One of those guys I'm sure would be willing to come down and sit with you.
I hope so. And one good thing about living in Charleston is people vacate here, and so maybe we can get some famous people to drop in and see us. And we got a few good people lined up. I think our listeners are going to love to hear as well. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on all our future guests, but there's a lineup. And we've had some great people reach out that we haven't even reached out to as well. So again, picking the brains of successful people is fascinating. And my love for music, my love for sports, it's just right up my alley. And we're having a great time. Scotty Fryer, who's co-host with me, he runs the Windjammer, and books all the guests at the Windjammer. So he has access to great musicians. Colin Morris is our producer, and he's a Gamecock guy. He was in school when I was at South Carolina. He played in the band at South Carolina. So he's very knowledgeable in sports as well. So we have a good time. Our conversations are fun. They're educational for me. I love to hear where songs came from and where ideas came from and where leadership things, things that make successful people click. It's just a lot of fun to pick those folks' brain.
Again, the Chin Music podcast is on the app, the Chief Sports app. That I listened to the entire episode this morning with Charles Eston. Of course, he's one of a long line of great guests you've had, including Roy Williams. For Gamecock fans, if you remember Blake Mitchell, his story that he tells on there is really incredible. Just had Charlie Worsham on there. I mean, it's just a bunch of great ones. And if you're going to be in a car ride, you got a ways to go, something to do. You're heading back and forth from Columbia or something like that. pull up our app, plug that thing in, and I promise you'll be entertained.
Well, I know there's a lot of Gamecock folks, watching today, and the Blake Mitchell episode was awesome for me because, one, being a quarterback in a position of leadership, but then hearing him talk about the differences between playing for Lou Holtz and Steve Spurrier, two opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to probably coaching philosophy, but the quarterback for both coaches and the differences, that was fascinating stuff too. And I think a lot of Gamecock fans would love to hear those stories.
It's amazing. I don't even know how to explain it. Charles Eston, that is out now. By the way, his music's fantastic. He's an unbelievably talented person. All the things he's done. I always forget he was in Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah. And I was watching that the other night. That is one of the funniest shows ever. I don't know how they do it.
And he does that stuff. He's on his feet. It's all on his feet. There's no script. I mean, everything comes off the top of his head. When you get around somebody that they're at a different level from an intellect standpoint or an IQ standpoint, you kind of know it right away. The minute he walked into the door and sat down, I'm like, I'm dealing with a different guy here. He's way above my spectrum when it comes to intelligence. And he was incredibly talented. And he checks all the boxes, acting, singing, comedian, songwriter. Man, it was a true joy to sit down and speak with him. And he's in Charleston quite a bit. So that's been cool.
Yeah. He's played at the Jammer a bunch and things like that. And that's how I feel every time I cut the mic on each day with Phil, by the way. He's up here and the rest of us are all trying to.
We got to have those guys, right?
Catch up. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I feel. That's how I feel about my assistant coaches,
That's right. I want to
Mississippi.
I want to turn to this Nick Saban thing with you. First of all, I don't. Have you ever had a chance to meet him before?
We crossed paths at a golf course. I feel like I know him, even though other than shaking hands, passing by, that's all. But having talked to coaches that have worked for him, Brad Loing, South Carolina, worked for him quite a bit at Michigan State. When I was at South Carolina, I was buddies with Brad, and he used to tell Nick Saban stories all the time, and so I felt like I've heard a lot of the stories behind the scenes, but. Obviously shocking news in the college football world, huh?
It is. Like, what do you – I mean, you've been coaching for a long time, and you've been a head coach now for what, 10 years? Is that right, 10 years?
Well, I was at South Carolina, 12, going on my 12th, I think now.
12 years? Oh, God, boy, we're getting – where's time going?
I think you include COVID in that, but yes. 5 at South Carolina and going on 7 here.
How do you – as a head coach, how do you summarize what he did over 26 years as a head coach at the collegiate level? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, he's probably the best to ever do it in any sport. I mean, and not only that, to do it in a league that's the best of the best. And it's not like he's shying away from any competition. He's playing the best each and every week. And to do it, I mean, the number of straight years of 10 wins or more, I mean, that's just crazy, crazy stuff. And obviously 7 national championships. And I'll tell you this funny story. I hope this doesn't get too long. I'll try to shorten it up as best I can. But Brad Long shared this with me. And he goes, you know what it's like working for Nick? He goes, there's never a wasted second. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'll tell you, when we're at the hotel on Friday night, we wake up Saturday morning. We might be playing an ESPN game at 7:30 at night. And we walk down to the ballroom for the team breakfast at 7 a.m. And when we walk into that ballroom, each coach, now 20 coaches, not a lot of coaches because you got a lot of advisors as well. Each coach in that ballroom has his own TV screen. And at this point in time, this was before, the internet and all the streaming services, but each coach had his big screen TV, and underneath the TV was a stack of the Friday night high school football games from the night before. So it's game day. They're getting ready to play an ESPN game. The first thing they do when their feet hit the floor, they walk to the ballroom, and all the high school games from the night before in that coach's respective area is underneath a screen that they're going to have to watch before the team gets there. So they're not only preparing for a ESPN national television game, they're watching their recruits from the night before. And he said it's unbelievable. I'm sure a lot of people do that now with the streaming, but back then, you had old VCR tapes or CDs or whatever, and they would just stack every high school game from that coach's area and you had to watch those recruits and those targets even before the day started. This gives you an idea of what Nick Saban's all about.
We got Shane coming up in a little while. If he hadn't thought of that yet, I'm gonna pass that story along to him and see what he thinks about our advice for around here.
Who's gonna get that job? I mean, you follow that guy. Good night, man.
Okay, so you followed the guy at South Carolina, and you were very successful. As a matter of fact, 3 40+ win seasons, 2 super regionals. Following the dude that just y'all played for. You won 2 and played for 3 straight national championships. What is that like, man? I mean,
well, I don't think it's going to be fair to the next guy. Obviously, there's nothing fair about sports. In many instances, especially this one. You're gonna whoever follows him is going to have to equal or exceed, right? Or you're going to be deemed a failure, and to equal what he did. That might be an impossible task. So it's, obviously though, you're at Alabama, you have incredible resources. A lot of the best high school players want to go play there, but it's not. Those shoes are. Good luck, man. Good luck. I'm talking to the best of the best. Good luck, because there's no finishing just a little bit below what he did. They won't accept that. And,
right.
And that's I learned that the hard way.
We
won some, and we did okay, but we didn't get to Omaha, and that's coaching in the SEC. You don't if the next coach doesn't make it to the college football playoff at Alabama, but wins 11 games, he'll probably be moving on as well.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's going to be tough to temper fans' expectations anyway, right, Coach? But when you're the guy following the guy, that's an impossible task.
Almost impossible. Almost impossible. And
you bring, like, it's not as easy as just this. Like, you don't just walk into the office and you're just a football coach. Shane. I remember when Shane got hired, and I was talking to him maybe like a month or 2 after he got hired. I think somewhere in there, Coach, and I asked him. I said, "What's been the most difficult thing about being a not only just a first-time head coach, but being a head coach in general, especially at a place like this?" He said, "Well, because about 90% of the stuff that lands on my desk has nothing to do with football."
Right.
I mean, you being the head coach at the College of Charleston for the baseball team, I was just on the phone with you the other day. Like, a lot of what you do isn't just baseball. You don't just show up and just write practice schedules. I mean, like, you're meeting with people, you got fundraising. There's a lot that goes on those shoulders, especially at a place like Alabama. I couldn't imagine. Yeah,
you spend a lot of, we all get into coaching because we want to be on the field with our players or develop a relationship with our players. And in this day and age, it's very difficult because you're being pulled in so many different directions, especially in that league. One of the true joys for me about being at the College of Charleston is, I get to enjoy a lot more of that than I did when I was at South Carolina. And I'll be the first to say I probably didn't handle that the right way, being pulled to speak all the time or being at events all the time and being pulled off the field and being away from players. I mean, while you're going through it, you think it's kind of enjoyable to promote your program, but then you look back at it and say, man, I wish I had more time on the field with those guys. And, luckily I'm at a good place now where I get to spend a lot of time on the field, and that's an enjoyable part. But yeah, it's a small fraction of your duty when you're coaching in that league is actually coaching. And I'm sure many coaches, Hubert Davis has told me that, at North Carolina as well. Is like, I'm shocked at how little I get to coach. And Roy will turn around and say, I tried to tell him. And so much more of your job is things other than coaching. And that's tough for some people to adjust to.
Well, and I think Chad Holbrook here with us, head coach at the College of Charleston Cougars baseball program, by the way, set to get going here in a little bit over a month. That's wild. But I think that's also what's so important about keeping that, whether it's football at the SEC level or baseball at the D2 level or whatever it is, any type of team sport that requires a lot of people, especially if you don't have a good, you have to hire good coaches. who are responsible, right, Coach? And then
Right.
you have to, and then football, of course, you got all these staff members and this, that, and the other. But one of the things that I've learned about football, and I know you've talked to plenty of coaches over the years, Coach Spurrier and guys like that, they always have like a small, trusted little group within that group that they can lean on through the good times, the bad times, the hard times, the whatever it is, you know. And sometimes those guys aren't who you think they are, but there's always a small little group of them. And I know that Nick, you know, at Alabama, clearly he had all that figured out because, as you just pointed out, everybody knew their responsibilities. They knew when it was time to go to work. They knew who was in charge. And then, but then also he had a little group of people that was able to kind of help him keep that ship navigated through rough waters.
You know, Brad always used to share with me this too. I thought this was funny. He said at the end of the day, down the hallway, the coaches were so afraid of Nick, they didn't want to leave to go home at the end of the day before he did, or you would hear about it. You know, so all of them would be done with their job, or done with the day, practice was over, and they'd just be peeking down the hallway, waiting for Coach Saban to leave. And they just sat there. As soon as he left, they all took off, you know. And but if you left before him, oh boy, you'd hear about it. And but that's just, you know, obviously that's what made him tick. I mean, what an incredible coach. I mean, I've been watching videos of him the last, 12 hours, just, trying to see what all made him tick. And obviously you can't do that in 12 hours, but some of the speeches and some of the talks and some of the things he would talk about with the press or the media at Alabama. And, one of the things that stuck out with me is this, is like, he goes, what was your first thing you wanted to accomplish at Alabama the day you were hired? And the first words out of his mouth was, on day one, I have to make sure that there's only one voice coming out of this football office in this football program, and that's my voice. None of his coaches could talk to the media. None of his coaches did any media stuff. I mean, it was football, coach those boys to the best of your ability. And the only voice you heard out of that program was his. And I thought that was kind of fascinating.
I think it is, because you don't see that at South Carolina. Shane does it differently. He's opened the doors up there. Yeah. Coach Muschamp very much fell in line with how Coach Saban ran his programs. And I personally, from a personal standpoint, I'm a big fan of Will Muschamp as a human being. He's an as you well know, he's an outstanding guy. But like a lot of what he didn't work, and I feel like I don't know if he like tried to mimic Coach Saban or if that's just what he knew or whatever. But in today's world, as you well know, it's a lot more difficult to run a program like that. And I feel like there's really just only so many people who can do. Like if you're a new head coach and you walk in and you try to put the clamps down like that, it's probably going to backfire. Right?
There's more than one way to skin a cat. Obviously, Steve Spurrier was way different than Lou Holtz, and Steve Spurrier was way different than Nick Saban, and they were the best. I mean, I remember walking into Steve Spurrier practice one day, and he was barefooted without his shirt on, and he was running around throwing footballs, and he didn't have a shirt on, and he didn't have anything on his feet, and he was coaching his quarterbacks as hard as he could. You wouldn't see Nick Saban do that, but so there's more than one way to skin a cat. But he did it his way, and his way he executed his way to the best, to the extreme. And it's probably hard to mimic that for sure for any other coach, but man, one of the best leaders and coaches, and take coach out of it, one of the best leaders in the history of our time. It's been a true joy to watch him work for sure.
How about the last 24 hours in general? I mean, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, do you think that they're secretly going to form another league, or like what's going on here? Right. I mean, this is crazy.
I guess they're both 72 years old. I guess Pete and Nick, I don't know how old Belichick is, but it's what careers all three of them had. I mean, I don't think, I think Belichick's going to coach again. It'll be interesting to see where he lands. I just have a feeling he'll be coaching again. Pete Carroll, he's like 72 going on 28, it looks like to me. I mean, he's got incredible energy, incredible fitness, and I can't see him being in a front office job either. But I guess we'll see. 3 of the best to ever coach the game of football all stepped down in a 24-hour period. We'll remember this day forever for sure.
Maybe Phil, reach out to Bill and Pete and Nick's people, and let's see if we can't get them on a program as part of our network. Maybe like a morning show. You think they would do that?
They'll probably get up early enough to execute that, though. People like that, they're up.
I've got a feeling.
Break of dawn. Mm.
I don't feel like those guys sleep much.
No. I can't imagine. It'd be interesting. All the greats don't sleep much. You hear Kobe Bryant talk about he only needed 4 hours a day, and Michael Jordan never slept. Tiger Woods never slept. I'm sure Saban never sleeps. I mean, it's something to that, but you need sleep for your health and well-being too. But I guess some people are wired a little bit differently. If I don't get 7 or 8 hours, I'm in trouble. I mean, I'm worthless the next day. But it's it is what it is. I mean, it's crazy stuff happened in the sports world the last 24.
I want to share this too. Obviously, Coach, you know Drew Sisko.
Yeah.
All right. So, and Mike, of course, is my best friend. And so, God, this has probably been like 10 years ago. I don't even know. Drew was, I think had only been maybe in pro ball for a couple of years or something. And they were over, what's the lake north of Atlanta? Lake.
That's where, I know what you're talking about. That's where Saban and them has their house.
Yeah,
that's right.
That lake.
Lake Oconee, maybe? There's one in Oconee.
Yeah. I think it's Oconee, yeah.
That's where the Ritz-Carlton is as well.
Yeah, they play the golf tournament and all that stuff up there. So he was over there with his now wife, Emily, his girlfriend at the time, and they somebody's lake house, I guess, I don't know. And they were out, tubing and stuff in the lake, and got thrown off, and the boat, someone else had been thrown off like somewhere back, I don't even know. And he said, so the boat went to get them first, and he said we were sitting there for like 5 minutes just kind of floating. Of course, they had life jackets on. So they were just kind of floating, like, are these cats going to come out and get us? Like, what's going on here? But they weren't far away from a dock, maybe like a 20, 30-yard swim. So he said we just kind of floated, and we just got tired of it. We drifted over there, propped ourselves up on the dock, and we were just sitting there waiting on the boat to come back, and then we jump back in the water. And he said they didn't have to pull up this guy's dock. And he said he heard someone coming down the dock saying, "Can I help you?" And he turned around. He said it was Nick Saban. And he was sitting on his floating dock. And he goes, "Yes, sir. We're just waiting. We got left. They're coming back to get us." And he said, "Oh my God, it's Nick Saban." To his face. And he said that he couldn't have been any kinder. "Well, can I get y'all something to eat or drink, or hope you're having a good time. Where are you from? What's your name?" And Drew said, I'm Drew Sisko, whatever. And but he said it was really amazing. So the boat came back around, and he said, "Yeah, y'all can wait a little bit. We're going to talk to Coach Saban for a few more minutes before we have to dive off his dock," which they did. But he said my point was, he said it left a big impression on him, because everything that Nick talked about was about Drew. All he wanted to do was ask questions, and he was very interested. And I just, people like that, I feel like, are the ones you were discussing earlier, how they walk into a room and you feel like they've always got a leg up. They're a little bit smarter than you, like Charles Esten. I think it's because they ask questions and they're not sitting there talking about themselves. And I've always found that pretty fascinating.
No doubt. The best people are always like sponges. You can just tell. And Charles was, when he walked in here, all the guests that we've had, from Wyatt Durrett, who's written 17 number one songs. And they couldn't be farther different into the spectrum in regards to what they're trying to accomplish, or what their different fields are, as far as, what Wyatt doesn't play the guitar. He doesn't perform that much, but he writes the best songs. Charles does it all, but their minds work all the time. And you can just tell, just sitting and talking to them, it's like every word that comes out of my mouth might be a song title to that person. And that's how their mind works. I think I told you this one day. Wyatt Durrett, that was a fascinating episode for me, is he was holding his kid in the ocean, and he was distracted. And his 5-year-old boy looked up at him and said, "Daddy, are you writing a song?" And because he wasn't paying him any attention, So, it's you never, the great ones never turn their minds off. you know. And
No.
I think that's we all try to go. I do. I try to go to Sullivan's Island and walk down the beach and get away from everything and just decompress. Maybe that's why I'm not a great one, but I think my mind needs to relax from time to time. But those ones that are elite, I don't know if their mind ever gets turned off.
Well, I'll be really anxious to hear from Coach Saban here pretty soon, and I'm sure he'll sit down with somebody and talk, and maybe he'll do some TV, you know, or something like that. I think he'd be good with TV, but
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. I mean, I can't wait. Yeah. And if you've never heard him speak or like never dove into he taught one time on a title called the Illusion of Choice. That was like one of his. Like, you don't have a choice to be great. Like so many people in this day and age are never told no, and he talks about like there's no choice if you want to be great at what you do. You have no choice. You have to do. It takes what it takes. That was his line, and fascinating stuff comes out of that guy.
Coach, Chin Music is out now on the Chief Sports app. Again, this is Chad Holbrook's, and it's a true podcast form, unlike what we do with live programming. It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal, and the newest episode dropped this morning with Charles Eston. It is now. Everybody, y'all need to wait till 2:00 to listen to it now because we're on till 2. And we got Mike Morgan, Stephen Garcia, and Shane Beamer coming up.